what that interview left me with more than anything else was an appreciation for how carefully Apple thinks about the products it develops and ultimately the products it sells.
Yeah.
He said that they worked for years on the watch, and they've clearly been working for years on the TV, because we heard about it in Walter Isaacson's biography.
Absolutely.
And it still isn't here.
Well, as he pointed out, one of the hardest decisions that they have to make is what not to do and what to prioritize. As you pointed out, they've been working on TV for a while. They called it a hobby for a long time. He said in the interview it's gone beyond the hobby stage, but it's not quite to that level where they can come right out and make this big to-do about it, make a big presentation about it. And what we've heard and we've been reporting is that it's getting the content, talking to the programmers who are making the shows and getting them out there and getting them on board. They don't want to happen to TV what happened to the music industry.
And that's not even about hardware innovation, that's about licensing and content deals.
Absolutely.
The iPhone 6 is the first product that Tim Cook has seen, I believe, from beginning to end under his watch as CEO through fruition. Is this a follow-up product? Is this just catching up with the Samsung Galaxy, or is it really the most innovative new phone, as he says it is?
Well, there certainly have been a lot of innovations in the iPhone 6. I don't want to discount that. But one of the biggest moves with this one was to go to the bigger screen, as you know, and getting into
which looks like a Samsung.
Which looks like a Samsung. Where have I seen that before? It's they're calling it a phablet, which I hate that word. But they're getting into sort of bigger screens. People want to surf the internet. They want to interact with their apps and much more regularly and have it much more vivid.
But that's the key, right? It's not just what the product looks like. It's ultimately what it does. And there, the iPhone 6 potentially, and the watch too, and the TV, whenever they come out with it, could be revolutionary in a way that the iPad wasn't. So the iPad was just like a bigger phone.
So for Apple, and Cook explained in the interview, it's all about the integration. It's not just the hardware, it's not just the software, it's not just services. It's all of them working together. And what he would argue is we're not copying Samsung. We're doing it better than they did, and we're integrating in a way that they didn't. And the watch definitely plays a role in that.
So I mentioned this is the first new product under Tim Cook. Let's listen into more of Charlie's interview. They also talked about when Steve Jobs asked Tim Cook to replace him as CEO back in 2011.
It took me a little by surprise for that. I mean, he had talked to me about being CEO before, and so I always knew it was his long-term thinking.
That you would become the CEO.
That I'd become the CEO.
But not then.
But not that specific moment. And so he and I had a discussion back and forth about, because I was testing him on this. I said, well, what kind of things do you want to do as chairman versus me do? And it was just sort of having a good banter with him. And I go, well, it's like I said, for example, ads, do you want me to just do the ones that I think are right? Or do you want to be involved in it? And he said, well, I hope you'll ask my opinion on some things. But I thought, Charlie, on that day, that he would be chairman for a long time, that I'd be CEO for a long time, and that we would continue to work together. And so, he knew when he chose me that I wasn't like him, that I'm not a carbon copy of him. And so he obviously thought through that deeply about who he wanted to lead Apple. And so that I have always felt the responsibility of. And I've wanted desperately to continue his legacy. And the Apple I deeply love. And so from the onset, I wanted to pour every ounce that I had in myself into the company. And but in terms of being everything he was, I've never had that objective. I've never had the objective of being like him, because I knew the only person I can be is the person I am. Right? And I'm not an actor. I'd be terrible in Hollywood. And so that's what I've done. I've tried to be the best Tim Cook I can be.
So Tim Cook trying to be the best Tim Cook he can be, but he has done a few things that Steve Jobs would have never dreamt of doing, such as share buybacks. Do you think Tim Cook is now leading Steve Jobs' Apple, or has he put his own mark on the company?
He is really taking it in new directions. You talk about openness. He's done a lot in terms of their relationships with labor, with worker, the way workers are treated. He's done a lot more in terms of openness as far as the environmental impact of technology, the buybacks, as you already mentioned. And now, what Tim Cook's his real strength, honestly, he's an operations guy. He knows that, but he also knows who to put in place to give Johnny Ive more of a voice, more of a prominence at the company. We're seeing that happen. That's where Johnny Ive was kind of always under Tim Cook's shadow. Johnny Ive doesn't have to be under Tim Cook's shadows because Tim Cook doesn't pretend to be a big design guru. Johnny Ive can really kind of come to the fore in that respect. And you've seen some other big appointments by Tim Cook. Angela Ahrendts, for example, in the retail space.
Right, former CEO of Burberry.
Absolutely.
Interesting to see if she can move those watches.
Waiting to see what she does, how she puts her stamp on the company.